One cashier's worst day at work takes an unbelievable turn when a powerful customer in disguise steps in to challenge a toxic manager's cruel behavior. What happens when the man standing up for him turns out to be one of the richest people in the world? Stay tuned to witness this life-changing moment, and let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire and amaze. The sharp beep of the scanner echoed rhythmically as Adam Reed slid item after item across the counter. His hands moved deftly, their pace steady despite the relentless line of customers stretching far beyond his register. Adam, 26 years old, with a calm demeanor and neatly braided hair tied back, had grown accustomed to the hustle of the midday shift. A smile touched his lips, genuine and warm, as he handed a receipt to an elderly woman who thanked him with a nod. "Next, please," Adam called, his voice carrying just enough energy to mask his exhaustion. The next customer, a middle-aged man with a thick neck and a scowl permanently etched onto his face, barely glanced at Adam as he shoved a basket full of items onto the counter. Adam greeted him anyway, as he always did. "Good afternoon, sir. How are you today?" The man didn't answer, but Adam didn't take it personally. After 3 years in this job, he had learned that politeness wasn't always reciprocated. As he scanned the first few items, Adam's focus was disrupted by the sharp, clipped voice of his manager, Greg Thompson. "Read," Greg barked from across the store, the sound cutting through the hum of customer chatter. Adam's stomach dropped. He didn't have to look to know Greg's expression, a combination of irritation and superiority that he had come to recognize all too well. Reluctantly, Adam glanced over to see the stocky, balding man approaching, his face flushed red. "Yes, Mr. Thompson," Adam asked, keeping his tone neutral. "You're supposed to be done with this line by now," Greg snapped, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "What's taking you so long? You think we've got all day?" Adam's cheeks burned, but he nodded respectfully. "I'm moving as quickly as I can, sir. It's just been a busy day." "Busy? You're always full of excuses." Greg folded his arms, his voice dripping with disdain. "It's not rocket science. Scan the items, take the money, and move on. If you can't handle it, maybe this isn't the job for you." Adam swallowed hard, his hands trembling slightly as he continued scanning. The customer he was assisting shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between Adam and Greg. Other customers in line whispered among themselves, their gazes heavy with pity or quiet judgment. "Look," Greg continued, his voice rising further, "I don't care how long your sob story is about needing this job. If you can't keep up, I'll find someone who can." The words landed like a slap. Adam's throat tightened, but he refused to let Greg see him falter. "Understood, sir. I'll work faster." "You'd better." Greg took a step closer, lowering his voice just enough for only Adam to hear. "Don't think for a second that being their favorite nice guy will save your job." Greg stormed off, leaving a trail of silence in his wake. Adam felt the heat of everyone's eyes on him. For a moment he stood frozen, gripping the scanner tightly, willing himself to stay composed. The customer in front of him hesitated before softly muttering, "Hey man, that was out of line." "You... okay." Adam nodded, mustering a faint smile. "Thanks for your patience, sir. Let's get you taken care of." As Adam returned to scanning, he caught sight of a man in the corner of his eye. He was tall, clean-shaven, and impeccably dressed in a crisp white shirt and tailored trousers. His silver-rimmed glasses glinted under the fluorescent lights as he adjusted them slightly, observing the entire exchange in silence. The man's presence was unsettling, not in a threatening way, but because he seemed out of place. His poise and calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos of the grocery store. Most strikingly, he made no effort to conceal that he was watching Adam intently. Adam quickly looked away, focusing on finishing the customer's transaction. He handed over the receipt with his usual politeness, though his mind raced. Was the man judging him too? Did he see a flustered employee failing to manage his tasks? He shook off the thought. This wasn't the time to dwell. He turned to the next customer, a young woman juggling a toddler in a shopping basket, and greeted her with a smile. But as he worked, he couldn't help noticing the man again. He had shifted slightly, leaning against a display of canned goods, still watching, still silent. By the time Adam reached the end of the line, his nerves were frayed, but he didn't let it show. The last customer thanked him, and he exhaled, grateful for a brief reprieve. Yet, as he glanced back at the corner, the man was still there, now inspecting a row of items with a casual air that Adam couldn't quite believe. Who was he? And why was he here? Adam had just finished wiping down his counter when Greg's voice boomed again from across the store. The sound hit him like a warning siren, sending a ripple of tension through his shoulders. "Reed, you've got a spill on aisle 4, Greg called out, his tone sharp and accusatory, as if Adam had personally caused the mess. Adam set down his rag and grabbed a mop and bucket from the utility closet near the back of the store. He moved quickly, keeping his head down, but his jaw tightened with every step. The humiliation from earlier still stung, but he couldn't afford to dwell on it. This job wasn't just about making ends meet, it was about survival. And for someone like Adam, survival meant keeping his head low and his temper in check. As he rounded the corner to aisle 4, he spotted the spill, a shattered jar of pasta sauce, the crimson liquid spreading across the tile like a crime scene. 2 children giggled nearby, their mother sheepishly apologizing as she tried to corral them back to her cart. "It's no problem," Adam said, offering her a reassuring smile. He crouched down and began cleaning up the mess. The pungent smell of garlic and tomatoes filled the air, mingling with the faint hum of the overhead lights. "Why are you moving so slow?" Greg's voice startled Adam. He hadn't noticed the manager following him. Greg stood a few feet away, hands on his hips, shaking his head in exaggerated disapproval. "I just got here," Sir Adam replied evenly, trying to keep his voice calm. He resumed mopping, careful to avoid the broken glass shards scattered across the floor. Greg stepped closer, his shadow looming over Adam. "Do you even know how to clean properly, or is that asking too much?" Adam's grip on the mop handle tightened, but he said nothing. He wasn't about to give Greg the satisfaction of a reaction. The tension was broken by the sound of a cart rolling slowly into the aisle. Adam glanced up and froze. It was the same man from earlier, the one who had been watching him. He was pushing a nearly empty cart, but his gaze wasn't on the groceries. It was fixed firmly on Greg. The manager faltered for a split second before recovering, his posture stiffening. "Can I help you, sir?" Greg asked, his tone suddenly polite but with an edge of impatience. The man tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "No, thank you. I'm just observing," he said, his voice calm yet commanding. His words hung in the air, charged with an authority that made Greg shift uncomfortably. Greg cleared his throat and turned back to Adam, eager to reassert his dominance. "Just hurry up, Reed. We don't have all day." Adam kept his focus on the task at hand, but he could feel the stranger's eyes on him, steady and unyielding. He didn't understand why, but the man's presence was both unnerving and oddly comforting. It was as if someone for the first time had truly seen what he endured every day. The sound of glass clinking against the mop bucket signaled the end of the cleanup. Adam stood, careful not to meet Greg's gaze, and began wheeling the bucket back toward the closet. But before he could leave the aisle, Greg called after him, his voice dripping with disdain. "Reed, when you're done with that, make sure to restock the dairy section. And try not to screw it up this time." Adam nodded, not trusting himself to speak, and pushed the bucket down the aisle. As he walked away, he caught a glimpse of the man again, now standing motionless, his hands resting lightly on the cart handle. Greg, clearly annoyed by the lingering presence of the well-dressed stranger, turned back to him. "Is there something you need, sir? Because if not, I suggest you move along. We're busy here." The man smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried more weight than any words could. "I'm just trying to understand the culture of this store," he said, his tone polite but pointed. Greg blinked, caught off guard. "Culture?" "Yes," the man replied, his gaze unwavering. "How employees are treated, how management leads. It's fascinating." Adam's chest tightened as he heard the exchange. There was something about the man's tone that hinted at more than curiosity. It felt like a challenge, though Greg didn't seem to recognize it yet. "Well, we run a tight ship here," Greg said, puffing up his chest. "No room for slackers." The man nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing slightly as if making a mental note. "I see." Adam reached the utility closet and slid the bucket into place, but he didn't return to his station right away. Instead, he lingered just out of sight listening. There was something about this man that made Adam feel like, for once, the power dynamics in the store were shifting. As he leaned against the wall, trying to process the strange turn of events, a single thought surfaced in his mind. Clear and persistent, who is this guy? The store's energy had shifted. Customers lingered, whispering in clusters about the earlier altercation between Adam and Greg. Adam could feel their eyes on him as he stocked milk cartons on the shelves of the dairy section. His hands worked mechanically, but his mind raced, replaying the incident with Greg in the presence of the enigmatic man who had been watching. Adam came a soft voice, startling him. It was Lisa, his co-worker from the bakery section. She was kind, always wearing a smile that could make the most grueling shifts bearable. Today, however, her expression was clouded with worry. "Hey, Lisa," Adam said, trying to muster some enthusiasm. "What's up?" She leaned closer, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "That guy, the one in the suit? He's still here. He's been asking questions." Adam furrowed his brow. "Questions? About what?" Lisa hesitated, biting her lip. "About how the store is run. About Greg." Adam's stomach tightened. Did Greg hear about this? Lisa nodded. "Oh yeah, and he's fuming. He's in the back office pacing like a caged tiger." Adam exhaled heavily, the weight of the day pressing down on him. "Thanks for the heads up, Lisa." She touched his arm gently. "Be careful, okay? I don't trust Greg when he's like this." Adam nodded and watched as Lisa returned to her station. The words "be careful" echoed in his mind. Working under Greg's supervision always required caution, but today felt different. Today there was something volatile in the air, like a storm waiting to break. As Adam finished stocking the shelves, he spotted the man again. He was near the checkout counters, standing casually with his hands in his pockets, observing the flow of customers and employees. It was almost as if he were evaluating the store itself. "Hey, Reed," Greg's voice shattered the fragile calm. Adam turned to see his manager striding toward him, face flushed with anger. "Sir," Adam said, bracing himself. "Why are you just standing here?" Greg barked. "Didn't I tell you to sweep up aisle 2? Or are you too busy daydreaming to follow instructions?" Adam glanced down at the empty milk crate in his hands. "I just finished stocking the dairy section, sir. I'll head to aisle 2 now." "You'd better," Greg snapped. His voice carried through the store, drawing the attention of several customers, including the man in the suit. Greg turned, his eyes landing on the man. His expression hardened. "You still here?" he called out, his tone dripping with irritation. The man smiled, a calm, disarming gesture. "I'm quite interested in how this store operates." Greg snorted. "Well, unless you're planning to buy something, I suggest you move along. We don't need loiterers causing distractions." The man tilted his head slightly, as though considering Greg's words. "Actually, I'm observing how employees are treated by their superiors." The air seemed to grow heavier. A few customers stopped what they were doing, their curiosity piqued. Adam felt his pulse quicken. Greg laughed bitterly. "Oh, really? And what makes you think you know anything about how to run a store? You think you're some kind of expert?" The man's expression didn't waver. "I do have some experience managing teams and ensuring a healthy work environment." "Yeah," Greg sneered, crossing his arms. "And who do you think you are?" The man's smile broadened, though his eyes remained sharp. "My name is Jeff." "Jeff what?" Greg pressed, his tone mocking. "Jeff Bezos," the man said simply, his voice steady and matter-of-fact. For a moment, silence blanketed the store. The name hung in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. A woman near the produce section dropped an apple she had been inspecting. A teenage cashier froze mid-scan, her eyes wide. Greg's smug expression faltered. He blinked, clearly trying to process what he had just heard. "Bezos? As in, Amazon Bezos?" "That's correct," Jeff said. His voice remained calm, but the authority behind it was unmistakable. A murmur rippled through the store as customers and employees alike began whispering to one another. Adam felt his knees weaken. Of all the people to witness today's events, The world's richest man was the last person he would have expected. Greg's face turned a deep shade of red. "Well, Mr. Bezos," he stammered, attempting to regain his composure, "what brings you to our store?" Jeff didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to Adam, his gaze steady and purposeful. "I came to see how ordinary people are treated in the places they work," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "And I have to say, I'm not impressed." Greg's jaw dropped. His eyes darted around the store as if searching for support, but he found none. The customers were watching with a mixture of awe and satisfaction, while the employees remained frozen, their expressions ranging from disbelief to quiet triumph. Adam swallowed hard, unsure of what to do. He had been trying to blend into the background his entire shift, and now he was at the center of a scene that felt surreal. Jeff took a step closer to Greg. "Leadership is about more than barking orders and humiliating your employees," he said. His voice was calm, but each word carried weight. "It's about respect. It's about accountability. Perhaps you've forgotten that." Greg sputtered, trying to form a response, but no words came. Jeff turned to Adam, offering him a small nod. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. For the first time that day, Adam felt seen not as a cog in the machine, but as a person. The store was deathly silent, save for the faint hum of the fluorescent lights. Greg's flushed face twitched with barely restrained fury, but his posture betrayed his unease. Adam stood frozen, unsure whether to step forward or retreat into the shadows. Jeff Bezos had just called out the very foundation of the toxic culture Greg had built, and the tension was palpable. Greg tried to laugh, but it came out as a stilted chuckle. "Mr. Bezos," he said, his voice dripping with forced politeness, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. You see, we run a tight ship here, and sometimes that means holding employees accountable." Jeff's expression didn't change. "I've noticed. But accountability isn't the same as humiliation. What I saw today wasn't leadership, it was bullying." A collective gasp escaped from the crowd of customers and employees who had gathered nearby, drawn in by the escalating drama. Greg's composure slipped further as beads of sweat glistened on his brow. "Well, Sir," Greg stammered, his voice rising defensively, "you don't understand the challenges we face in retail. It's not as simple as running a tech company." Jeff raised an eyebrow. "Challenges? You mean the challenge of treating people with dignity? I've built an organization with millions of employees, Greg. I know what it takes to lead under pressure, and it doesn't involve berating someone for doing their best." Adam's breath caught. He had spent years enduring Greg's tirades, internalizing the belief that keeping his head down was the only way to survive. But now, with Jeff Bezos standing in his corner, he felt a glimmer of hope, a realization that this moment might be the start of something bigger. Greg's voice sharpened. "Look, I was just trying to ensure the job gets done. Reed here," he gestured toward Adam with a dismissive wave, "has a history of slacking off. If he'd just pick up the pace, none of this would have happened." The comment stung, but before Adam could react, Jeff stepped forward. His voice cut through the air, firm and commanding. "Enough." Greg froze, the power in Jeff's tone stopping him mid-sentence. "Adam," Jeff said, turning to him, "how long have you worked here?" Adam hesitated, glancing at Greg, who glared at him with thinly veiled contempt. Finally, he squared his shoulders and spoke. 3 years, sir." Jeff nodded. "And in those 3 years, have you ever been recognized for your work?" Adam blinked, unsure how to respond. Not really, sir. No." "Has anyone bothered to ask about your career goals? Your ambitions? What you want to achieve beyond this job?" Jeff's voice softened, but his words carried the weight of genuine concern. Adam shook his head, a lump forming in his throat. "No, sir, they haven't." Jeff turned back to Greg, his gaze now icy. "That's the problem. You see a worker. I see a human being with potential." The crowd murmured in agreement. A woman in the back whispered, "He's right," and others nodded, emboldened by Jeff's words. Greg, cornered and visibly unraveling, tried one last attempt to save face. "With all due respect, Mr. Bezos, this is my store. I know what's best for my employees." "Your store?" Jeff asked, his tone deceptively calm. "I checked on the way in. This store is part of a chain owned by Green Line Retail Corporation. I happen to know the CEO." Greg's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Well, yes, technically. Technically nothing, Jeff interrupted. I'll be having a conversation with the CEO about your leadership style. We'll see if it aligns with the company's values. Adam's eyes widened. It was the first time he had seen Greg look genuinely afraid. The man who wielded his authority like a weapon now seemed powerless, his bravado stripped away. Reed, Jeff said, his voice drawing Adam's attention. I'm not here to just expose bad management. I'm here to fix it. Would you be interested in a training program? Something that could help you advance beyond this job? The question stunned Adam. He felt the weight of every sacrifice, every sleepless night, and every moment of self-doubt. His voice trembled as he answered, Yes, I'd like that. Thank you. Jeff smiled faintly. Good. Let's make it happen. Greg, red-faced and sputtering, tried to interject. This is outrageous. You can't just come in here and... Enough, Jeff said again, his tone final. Your behavior today has been unacceptable. It's time for you to take responsibility. As if on cue, a corporate representative from Greenline Retail arrived, having been summoned earlier by Jeff's assistant. The rep, a poised woman in a sharp business suit, quickly assessed the situation and pulled Greg aside for a private conversation. Adam stood in stunned silence as the events unfolded. Customers began clapping, one by one, until the store erupted into applause. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Lisa smiling at him. You deserve this, she whispered. Jeff extended his hand to Adam, who shook it, still processing the surreal turn of events. Leadership isn't about tearing people down, Jeff said, his voice low enough for only Adam to hear. It's about building them up. Remember that. As Jeff walked away, Adam stood taller than he had in years. For the first time, he felt more than just a cashier. He felt seen. He felt human. The buzz in the store was electric. Customers lingered near the checkout lines, their carts momentarily forgotten as they recounted what had just happened. Employees whispered among themselves in hushed, excited tones, stealing glances at Adam, who still stood near the dairy aisle, mop in hand, trying to process the surreal events of the last few minutes. Greg had vanished into the back office with the corporate representative, his once commanding voice now muffled and subdued behind the glass door. The sight of him retreating, his usual swagger replaced by nervous glances over his shoulder, was enough to draw a few muffled cheers from employees who had endured his tyranny for far too long. Adam, meanwhile, felt as though he were suspended in a dream. The conversation with Jeff Bezos replayed in his mind on a loop, each word reinforcing the sense of validation and worth he hadn't felt in years. For the first time, someone in power had not only noticed him but had also recognized his potential. Lisa approached him again, this time with a broad grin. Adam, she said, nudging him playfully, I think you just became a legend. Adam laughed nervously, still unsure how to respond to the sudden attention. I don't know about that. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all this. Well, you better start, Lisa said, her expression softening. You deserve every bit of it. We've all seen how Greg treats you and the rest of us. Watching him finally get what he deserves. That was priceless. Adam glanced toward the back office, where Greg's silhouette paced anxiously. The faint sound of raised voices trickled out, but Adam didn't need to hear the words to know the outcome. For years, Greg had ruled the store with an iron fist, his disdain for employees like Adam thinly veiled behind the guise of strict management, but today, the balance of power had shifted. A voice over the store's intercom interrupted his thoughts. Attention, all employees, said the corporate representative, her tone crisp and authoritative. Please gather in the break room for a brief meeting. Adam hesitated, his pulse quickening. Lisa gave him a reassuring pat on the back. Come on, she said. This is about you. You have nothing to be afraid of. Reluctantly, Adam followed Lisa and the rest of the employees to the break room. The small space was cramped with people, the air buzzing with speculation. The corporate representative stood at the front, clipboard in hand, her sharp gaze scanning the room. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice carrying a calm but firm authority. I'm sure you're aware that today's events have brought some significant concerns to light regarding the leadership of this store. A murmur ran through the crowd, but she raised a hand to silence it. Effective immediately, Greg Thompson has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. During this time, an interim manager will be assigned to ensure the smooth operation of the store. The room erupted into whispers, a mix of relief and cautious optimism. Adam exchanged a glance with Lisa, who gave him an encouraging nod. The representative continued. In addition, as part of our commitment to fostering a positive work environment, we will be implementing new training programs for all employees, including leadership development opportunities. One of our customers today, her gaze flicked briefly toward Adam, has generously offered to sponsor these programs, ensuring that everyone here has access to the resources they need to succeed. All eyes turned to Adam, who felt his cheeks flush under the attention. He raised a hand slightly, a sheepish smile on his face. A hi. Laughter rippled through the room, breaking the tension. The representative smiled. Let me also take a moment to recognize Adam Reed for his professionalism and composure in a challenging situation. It's clear to everyone here that Adam embodies the values we strive for as a company. A round of applause erupted, and Adam felt an unexpected lump rise in his throat. He had spent so long working in silence, believing his efforts went unnoticed, that the sudden acknowledgement felt overwhelming. Thank you, Adam said, his voice steady despite the emotions threatening to spill over. I never expected this. Honestly, I just try to do my job the best I can. And it shows, the representative replied. We're lucky to have you. As the meeting concluded, employees lingered to congratulate Adam, their smiles genuine and their words filled with gratitude. For years, they had all endured Greg's relentless criticism, but today they felt a sense of hope that things might finally change. When the crowd dispersed, Adam found himself standing alone in the now quiet break room. The corporate representative approached him, extending a business card. If you're serious about leadership development, she said, we'd love to have you join the program. Jeff Bezos personally requested that we keep an eye on your progress. Adam stared at the card in his hand, the weight of her words sinking in. He nodded slowly, a determined smile forming on his lips. I'm serious, he said. Thank you. As he left the break room and stepped back onto the store floor, Adam noticed something different. The way his coworkers looked at him, the way customers smiled at him, it was as though the world had shifted ever so slightly. For the first time in years, Adam felt more than just a cog in the machine. He felt like he belonged. A week had passed since the day everything changed at the store. Adam still found it hard to believe that his life had been flipped upside down in the span of a single afternoon. Standing at the entrance of the store, he glanced at the automatic doors as they slid open and shut, watching customers filter in and out with their carts. It all felt the same, yet entirely different. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with an unfamiliar energy. Hope. The once stale environment, where employees avoided eye contact and whispered complaints, was now alive with shared laughter and easy camaraderie. Lisa was restocking bread on a nearby shelf, her cheerful banter with another coworker floating through the air. Adam adjusted his name tag, now paired with a small pin that read Team Lead in Training. It wasn't a promotion he had expected, but the recognition it brought meant more than the title. As he walked toward the customer service counter, he thought back to the conversation that had led him here. The day after Greg's removal, Adam sat in the manager's office, now temporarily occupied by Carla, the interim manager sent by corporate. She had smiled warmly, gesturing for Adam to sit. Adam, I wanted to personally thank you for how you handled everything, Carla said. Situations like that can break people, but you showed incredible resilience. Thank you, Adam replied, his voice steady but humble. I just did what I thought was right. More than that, Carla continued, you've shown leadership qualities that are hard to teach. Jeff Bezos saw that in you, and frankly, so do I. If you're willing, I'd like to recommend you for our leadership development program. Adam blinked, stunned. Leadership? Me. Carla smiled. Yes, you. You have a way of inspiring people, Adam, even if you don't realize it yet. Now, as Adam approached the service counter, he saw a familiar face waiting in line. The elderly woman he had helped the week before waved at him, her cart filled with groceries. Adam, she called, her smile wide. It's good to see you. You've got a glow about you today. Adam chuckled. Thank you, Ma Am. How's everything going? "Oh, just fine," she said, leaning on her cart. "And you? Still keeping this place running?" "Trying my best," Adam replied with a grin. Behind her, a middle-aged man stepped into line, pulling out his wallet as he glanced at Adam. He did a double take before recognition lit up his face. "Hey, you're the guy from the Bezos thing, right?" Adam flushed slightly but nodded. "I guess so." "That was amazing," the man said, shaking his head in admiration. "You stood your ground and showed everyone how to do the right thing. I've been telling that story all week." "Thank you," Adam said sincerely, though the attention still felt surreal. The conversation was interrupted by Lisa, who popped up beside Adam, holding a tray of freshly baked cookies. "You're a celebrity now," she teased, offering him one. "Don't forget about us when you're running this place." Adam laughed. "Trust me, Lisa, I'm not going anywhere." She smiled knowingly. "Not yet, but I can see it already. You're going to do big things." Later that evening, Adam sat in his small apartment, the quiet a welcome change after the busy day. On his kitchen table sat a folder containing materials for the leadership program he had just enrolled in. It was daunting, but for the first time in years, Adam felt a sense of direction, a clear path forward. As he flipped through the papers, his phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from the corporate office, confirming his enrollment and outlining his first steps. At the bottom of the email was a short note. "Adam, I look forward to seeing your progress. Remember, leadership isn't about where you start, it's about where you're willing to go. Jeff Bezos." Adam stared at the message, a mixture of gratitude and determination swelling in his chest. The memory of standing frozen in the dairy aisle, unsure of his worth, now felt like a distant echo. He had come a long way in a short time, but he knew there was still more to achieve. He looked out the window, where the city lights glimmered in the distance. For the first time in as long as he could remember, Adam felt like he had a future to dream about. Back at the store, things were changing too. Carla had begun holding weekly meetings, encouraging open communication and addressing concerns that had long been ignored under Greg's regime. The employees were no longer afraid to speak up, and the small improvements had already made a noticeable difference. As Adam walked through the aisles the next day, he heard snippets of conversation, coworkers laughing, customers complimenting the friendly atmosphere. The store felt alive in a way it hadn't before, and Adam knew he had played a part in that transformation. His journey was just beginning, but for the first time he felt ready. With each step forward, Adam was determined to honor the belief that Jeff, Carla, and his coworkers had placed in him. He wasn't just a cashier anymore, he was a leader in the making. And as he stood in the middle of the bustling store, Adam Reed smiled, knowing the best was yet to come.